My stepdaughter used me for 17 years to pay for her luxury life, but when she wanted her absent father to walk her down the aisle at her $100,000 wedding, I took back the Mercedes, canceled the wedding, and divorced. Now she'll never forget who her real father was. I'm 54 years old. I work in financial consulting, and I need to tell this story because what happened a few months ago basically destroyed my family. Or, well, what I thought was my family. The thing is, I spent 17 years, literally 17 complete years, being a father to a girl who wasn't mine biologically, and in the end, they treated me like I was invisible, like I didn't exist. And yeah, I know it sounds dramatic, but wait until I tell you everything, because trust me, I'm not exaggerating even a little bit. I met Victoria when I was 37. She was 35, and her daughter Isabel was 9. We met at a networking event. You know, those boring corporate things where everyone pretends to be interested in what everyone else does, and honestly, she seemed incredible to me from the first moment. She was smart, funny, had this energy that attracted me, and when she told me she was a single mother, it didn't bother me at all. Like, I had never wanted to have kids of my own, but it wasn't something that bothered me either. On our third date, I met Isabel, a cute girl, kind of shy, with this curly hair that would get all messy, and I liked her immediately. I don't know. I guess I thought we could be a functional family, you know? The biological father, Travis Bennett, basically didn't exist in Isabel's life. Victoria told me they had separated when the girl was like 3 years old, that he paid a miserable child support that barely covered anything, and that she saw him maybe twice a year if she was lucky. Christmas and her birthday, and not even that was certain. Like, there were years when he didn't even show up. Victoria was working part-time back then in administration at a dental clinic. She earned enough to survive, but not much more, and they basically lived month to month. When we started talking about moving in together after a year of dating, I was already earning really well, and I told her not to worry about money, that I would take care of everything. For all those years. We moved to a house in a nice neighborhood when Isabel was 10, and from that moment, I was the one who paid for everything. The mortgage, utilities, food, clothes, absolutely everything. Victoria stopped working because, according to her, she wanted to focus on being a full-time mother, and I was okay with it. I mean, I earned enough to support the family comfortably, so I didn't see the problem. I enrolled Isabel in a private school that cost like $15,000 a year, bought her everything she needed for her extracurricular activities, took her to her piano classes, to her soccer games, to everything. On weekends, the three of us would go out, we'd go to the movies, to eat, vacation at the beach every summer. I never legally adopted Isabel. Victoria never asked me to, and I never suggested it either. But in all practical aspects, I was her father. Period. Travis kept showing up from time to time, like maybe 3 or 4 times a year, always with some excuse about why he couldn't be more present, that work, that he had health problems, that I don't know what else. Isabel would see him, they'd spend a few hours together, he'd buy her some cheap gift, and that was it, he'd leave again. I never said anything negative about him in front of Isabel. Never. Because Victoria asked me not to, and I respected that. Although inside, it bothered me that this guy could appear and disappear like nothing, while I was there every day doing the real work of being a father. When Isabel turned 14, she started calling me Matthew, instead of just talking to me, without using any title. Which seemed fine to me. I mean, I never asked her to call me Dad or anything, but it didn't bother me either. We had a good relationship, I think. She told me things about school, asked me for help with homework. We watched series together. When she turned 16, I bought her first car. Nothing crazy. A used Toyota in good condition, and she was happy for her high. School graduation, I bought her a Rolex, one of the women's models that cost like $8,000, and she started crying with emotion when she opened it. Travis was at the graduation, by the way, sitting in the stands like he was a normal dad, and no one who didn't know the situation would have known that this guy had basically not been present in her life. College was another thing. Isabel wanted to study marketing at a private university that cost $30,000 a year. 4 years, full tuition, housing, books, everything. Do the math. That's like $120,000 more or less. Although I ended up paying like $90,000 because I got some partial scholarships. Travis didn't contribute a single cent. Literally. Not one. When Victoria mentioned it to him, he said he didn't have that money, that he could barely cover his own expenses, and that was it. I paid every semester on time, never complained, never held it against Isabel. During college, she would come home every long weekend, on vacations, and I kept her room exactly as she left it, with all her things, her photos, her high school memories. When she graduated 3 years ago, I gave her a Mercedes-Benz class, 2021 model, which cost me $45,000. New. Straight from the dealership, with everything paid in full. Isabel almost fainted when she saw the car in the driveway with a giant red bow. And Victoria cried too. Hugged me. Told me I was the best man in the world. That day I felt good. You know? Like all the effort, all the money, all the time was worth it because they were my family and I loved them. It sounds corny, but that's how I felt. Isabel got a job at a marketing agency after graduating, earned a decent salary for someone fresh out of college, and although she could have moved out on her own, she decided to stay with us for 1 more year while she saved money. I didn't charge her rent, obviously. Victoria still wasn't working either, so I was still supporting the whole household. Isabel met Alexander at her work, a guy who worked in finance, came from a well-off family, with money, the typical guy who went to good schools and had that air of privilege you can spot from miles away. He was polite to me, correct, but I never felt like he really took me seriously. Like, I always had the feeling he saw me as his girlfriend's mom's boyfriend and that's it, not as an important father figure in Isabel's life. A year and a half ago, Isabel moved in with Alexander to an apartment downtown, and I helped her with moving expenses, bought her some furniture, gave her like $5,000 so she'd have a financial cushion. We kept seeing each other often, had dinner together about once a week, and everything seemed fine. And then, 8 months ago, Alexander proposed to her. It was an elaborate proposal, with a photographer and everything, at a restaurant by the ocean, and when Isabel called to tell us, Victoria and I were excited. Or well, I was happy, because she was happy. Although inside I was already starting to wonder how they were going to handle the whole wedding thing, considering Travis was still part of the equation. Wedding planning started almost immediately. Isabel and Victoria became completely obsessed, spent hours talking about flowers, dresses, decorations, venues. I assumed at some point they were going to involve me, to talk about the budget or something, but weeks went by and no one told me anything concrete. When I asked something, they'd respond with vague things, like, "We'll tell you, Matthew, don't worry," or, "We haven't decided anything yet." It seemed weird to me, but I didn't think too much about it. I guess I thought they were in the dreaming phase about everything, and that later they'd come talk to me about the real numbers. The wedding was scheduled for 9 months from the engagement. It was going to be 350 guests, at a vineyard venue that looked incredible in the photos Victoria showed me. Gourmet catering, open bar all night, live band, fireworks at the end, everything super elaborate. When I finally asked how much it was all going to cost, Victoria told me they were still looking at options, but probably between $80,000 and $100,000, and I stayed quiet processing that figure. It's a lot of money, obviously, but it's not like I was going to let Isabel have a mediocre wedding after everything we had built together all those years. What started to bother me was that they excluded me from the planning meetings. Victoria and Isabel would go together to see venues, to meet with wedding planners, to taste catering food, and they never invited me. When I asked them why they didn't let me know, they'd say things like, "It's just that they were quick appointments," or, "We forgot to mention it to you," or, "This is more of a women's thing, Matthew, don't be offended." Every time I mentioned it, Victoria told me I was being sensitive, that they just wanted the wedding to be perfect, and that I was going to take care of the financial part, which was the most important thing. That phrase stuck with me, the financial part, which is the most important thing, as if my only role was to be the walking checkbook, and then the invitations arrived. Victoria brought them home like 4 months ago, super excited, to show me before they sent them out. They were elegant, thick ivory paper with gold letters. Really pretty, actually. I opened them and started reading. "Victoria Martinez and Travis Bennett have the honor of inviting you to the wedding of their daughter Isabel," the first line said. I read that line 3 times, literally, because I couldn't believe it. Travis Bennett, the guy who had seen his daughter maybe 30 times in 17 years, was listed as the father on the invitation. And me, the one who had paid for absolutely everything, who had been there every day, didn't appear anywhere. Victoria must have seen my face because she immediately started with, "Matthew, it's just that legally Travis is her father. It was the simplest thing." And I said, "The simplest thing? After 17 years of supporting you both? Of paying for everything? I don't deserve even a mention on the wedding invitation of the girl I raised?" She got defensive, told me not to be dramatic, that everyone knew the role I had played in Isabel's life, and that I didn't need to be on a piece of paper to validate it. Isabel was there too and didn't say anything, absolutely nothing, just looked at her phone while her mom and I argued. That hurt more than anything else, you know? That she didn't even try to defend me or explain to me why they had made that decision. But anyway, I swallowed the frustration, again, because I didn't want to ruin this important moment for Isabel. I thought, okay, the invitation doesn't include me, it's stupid, but I can live with that if the rest of the wedding acknowledges my role, a big mistake on my part to assume that. A month later, we organized a dinner at an exclusive restaurant downtown so both families could officially meet before the wedding. I made the reservation. At one of those places where you need to book 2 months in advance and where the tasting menu costs $200 per person. There were 12 people total. Victoria, Isabel, Alexander, Alexander's parents named Diana and Henry, some of Alexander's siblings, Travis with his new girlfriend, and me. The bill was going to be mine, obviously. Everyone knew it. No one even pretended to offer to share costs. The dinner started well, everyone polite, pleasant conversation about the wedding, about Isabel and Alexander's plans for the future. Diana and Henry were nice people, clearly with money, but not show-offs. They talked normally. Travis was there with his girlfriend, a woman like 15 years younger than him, and he acted like he was father of the year, telling anecdotes from when Isabel was little that he probably didn't even remember well because he wasn't present to live them. I stayed quiet most of the time, drinking my wine, eating my $200 meal, observing, and then Isabel stood up to make a toast. She looked beautiful. I have to admit, all excited with her champagne glass in her hand. She started thanking Alexander for being her person, Alexander's parents for welcoming her into their family, Victoria for being the best mom in the world, and then she turned to Travis and said, "And I especially want to thank my dad, Travis, who has been my rock my whole life, and who is going to walk me down the aisle on the most important day of my life. My rock." Her exact words were, "My rock." The guy who saw her twice a year was her rock, and me, the one who had paid for her complete education, her car, her college, this dinner, the wedding. I didn't even deserve a mention. Everyone toasted, said cheers, drank champagne, and I sat there with the glass in my hand without raising it. Victoria looked at me like, "Please don't make a scene," and I just smiled. That fake smile you put on when you're boiling inside but don't want to explode. I let everyone finish drinking, and then I stood up. Everyone went quiet, and I said, "Before we order dessert, I want to make an announcement." You could feel the atmosphere get tense immediately. Victoria was looking at me with panic, Isabel confused. I said, "I've heard everything you've said tonight, and I think it's wonderful that Travis is going to walk Isabel down the aisle. Honestly, I'm excited for both of them. And since he's going to have that honor, it makes complete sense that he should also take care of paying for the wedding. So, Travis, the bill for this dinner and all the wedding expenses are yours. Congratulations." The silence that followed was uncomfortable at a level I can't even describe. Travis was looking at me with his mouth open. Isabel had gone pale. Victoria tried to grab my arm, but I pulled away. Diana and Henry exchanged looks. Like, what did we get into? Alexander was paralyzed. I left my napkin on the table, told the waiter that anything they ordered after this should be charged to Mr. Bennett, pointing at Travis, and walked out of the restaurant. I got in my car and drove home. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel and I felt like I was going to throw up. But I also felt strangely liberated. You know what I mean? Victoria arrived like 2 hours later, furious. She came into the house yelling, telling me how dare I humiliate her like that in front of Alexander's family, that I was selfish, that I was ruining Isabel's wedding because of my hurt pride. I told her, Victoria, I spent 17 years supporting your daughter. I paid for everything she's needed since she was 9 years old. I bought her a $45,000 car. I paid for her complete college education, and she just said in public that her father, her rock, is a man who has done absolutely nothing for her. And I'm the selfish one? She started crying, saying that I knew from the beginning that Travis was the biological father, that no one ever forced me to pay for anything, that I did it because I wanted to. And she was technically right. No one forced me. But that doesn't mean I didn't expect a minimum of recognition or gratitude after so much time and so much money. That night we slept in separate rooms, and the next day I started making calls. I called the Vineyard venue and canceled the reservation, lost the $5,000 deposit, but I didn't care. I called the catering and canceled, the florist and canceled, the band and canceled, the photographer, the videographer, the chair and table rental company, the bartender, everyone. Every vendor we had hired and that I was going to pay received a call from me canceling their services. Some asked me questions. I simply told them there was a change of plans and not to worry about the deposits that would be lost. After that, I went to the bank and moved all the money from our joint account to a personal account I opened that same day. It was like $180,000, savings from years that were technically mine because I was the one who had generated them. Victoria never worked a single day during our relationship. Isabel's Mercedes was registered in my name, so I hired a tow service, had it brought to my house, and that same afternoon I put it up for sale online. I sold it 3 days later for $50,000 to a used car dealer who came, checked it out, and paid me in cash. All legal, all correct. The car was in my name and I could do with it what I wanted. Isabel started sending me messages, like 50 messages in 2 days, telling me how could I do this to her, that I was ruining her life, that she had always loved me like a father, to please reconsider. I responded only once. I told her, Isabel, if you loved me like a father, you had a very strange way of showing it. I didn't answer any of her messages after that. Victoria confronted me again, this time calmer, but equally upset. She told me I was acting like a child, that this was ridiculous, that Travis couldn't even pay for the wedding because he didn't have that money. I told her, it's not my problem. If Isabel wants him to walk her down the aisle, then he can find a way to pay for that privilege. Victoria accused me of being vindictive, of not really loving Isabel, of having been counting every penny I spent on her all these years expecting something in return. And that's when I got really angry. I yelled at her that it wasn't about the money, that it was about basic respect, about recognition, about not being treated like a ghost after having given everything for them for almost 2 decades. Travis called me too, which was surreal. He said, Look, Matthew, I know things got out of control, but don't you think you're overreacting a little? It's just a wedding. Let it go. I told him, Travis, you have no idea what it means to raise a child day by day, year after year, so don't come talk to me about letting things go. He got upset, told me I wasn't Isabel's real father, and that I needed to accept that. I hung up on him. Isabel came to the house. Victoria let her in with her key, and I found her in the living room crying. When I got home from work, I sat across from her and didn't say anything, just waited. She started talking, saying that she knew I had done a lot for her, that she was grateful, that she didn't mean to hurt me. I asked her, Then why did you do it? Why did you exclude me from everything? Why is Travis the one walking you down the aisle when I was the one who took you to your first day of school, to your games, to college? She said that Travis is her biological dad and always will be, that she couldn't change that she didn't want to hurt him by excluding him from her wedding. I said, But hurting me was okay? She didn't know what to answer. She left crying. A week later, Victoria came with a handwritten letter from Isabel, like those long letters of several pages where they ask for forgiveness and explain everything they felt. I read it. It basically said that she understood why I was hurt, that she should have included me more in the planning, that she should have acknowledged me in her toast, that she made a mistake. But nowhere in that 3-page letter Did it say that Travis wasn't going to walk her down the aisle, or that she was going to change the invitations to include me, or that she really understood the magnitude of what she had done? It was a superficial apology, so I would open my checkbook again. Nothing more. I told Victoria the answer was no, that I wasn't going to pay for the wedding, that my decisions were final. She asked me then what was going to happen with us, with our relationship. I told her honestly that I didn't know, that I needed time to think. 2 more weeks passed. The wedding date was approaching, and apparently Alexander and his parents refused to cover the complete costs of the wedding, like they offered to pay their part but not everything, which was reasonable considering traditionally the bride's family pays the majority. Without a venue, without vendors, without money, the wedding was officially canceled like 6 weeks ago. Isabel sent me one last message, saying she hoped I was happy ruining the most important day of her life. I didn't respond. Victoria told me she was going to leave, that she couldn't be with someone who had done that to her daughter. I told her that was fine, that it was best for both of us. We started divorce papers last week. We have a prenuptial agreement we signed when we moved in together years ago that basically says each person keeps what they brought to the relationship, so she's not going to receive any of my money or properties. She moved to a small apartment a friend is renting to her. I blocked them all. Victoria, Isabel, Travis, changed the locks on the house and basically started from scratch. Some friends have told me I went too far, that I was too harsh, that at the end of the day, Isabel is young and made a mistake. Others tell me I did well in setting boundaries, that no one should allow themselves to be treated like that, no matter how much time they've invested in a relationship. Honestly, I don't know who's right, if anyone is. Sometimes I wonder if I should have handled things differently, if I should have talked to Isabel more calmly before canceling everything, if I should have given her a chance to really fix it. But then I remember her face in that restaurant while her mom and I argued about the invitations, looking at her phone, saying nothing. And I remember that toast where she completely erased me from her life, in front of everyone, and the anger comes back. It's not even about the money at the end of the day. It's about being seen, about being valued, about not being treated like a disposable resource after giving so much of yourself. The other day, I was cleaning the closet and found a photo from when Isabel was like 12 years old. We were at the beach, she was building a sandcastle, and I was helping her, both of us smiling. Victoria took that photo. I stared at it for like 10 minutes, trying to remember how I felt that day, and I could only think about how different everything was then. Or maybe it wasn't different and I just didn't want to see it. I don't know. I put it in a box with other things from those years and closed the closet. I guess what I learned from all this, if I learned anything, is that you can give everything of yourself to people, your time, your money, your energy, your love, and still not be enough for them. And that sometimes the only way to recover your dignity is to walk away, even if it hurts, even if everyone tells you you're wrong. I don't know if Victoria or Isabel will ever really understand why I did what I did. Probably not. Probably I'll always be the villain in their story, the guy who ruined the wedding out of pride. And, honestly, I can live with that. What I couldn't live with was continuing to be invisible in my own family.